Now, let's look at our grassland scorecard. A1 is how many positive indicators are present in the plot. You'll see a whole list of positive indicator species here, and for help in their identification, please see our tip sheet, which has useful photos. It also has a lot of information on some of the questions in this scorecard. You'll also see asterisks beside some of the species, meaning that they're wetland indicators, and they're referred to later in this scorecard. We mentioned earlier in the video about the need to walk a W transect in order to capture any variation in vegetation type within the plot. The idea being that you record all positive indicators that occur in the plot and get a good handle on their total cover. Where a plot is just short of a higher points category for A1, then any additional positive indicator species near the boundaries of the plot, such as along watercourses or other wet features, can be included. While this won't have a huge impact on the cover in A2, it will benefit farmers, including those with green land, for attaining or creating buffer zones or semi-natural field margins. A2. What is the combined cover of positive indicators throughout the plot? As I mentioned earlier, estimating cover can be tricky. So, for example, if you had a cover of, we'll say 50%, as you walk over your transect, you should see these positive indicators, one in every 2 steps. A3. What is the combined cover of negative indicators throughout the plot? You'll see here that creeping and spear thistle are both listed as negative indicators. However, the marsh and meadow thistle are listed as positive indicators. If you have any doubt as to the identification of either of these, have a look at the photograph on our tip sheet. A4 is vegetation structure. This is an either-or question, depending on whether the grassland is primarily grazed or closed off for silage. Where it is primarily grazed, poor structure is where greater than 75% of the plot has either tall or short sward with few flowering plants. Moderate structure is where there's between 25 and 50% has either tall or short vegetation. And good is where more than 50% has a variety of tall and short vegetation with intermediate vegetation throughout. There's a useful diagram on our tip sheet that demonstrates this distribution of structure. For plots closed off for silage, assume a good structure and award 10 marks. B1 is the contribution to watercourses. This captures the importance of the plot to watercourses and ultimately captures the level of risk of the grassland plot to water quality and the freshwater pearl mussel. Wet features in this section are pretty much what they say on the tin and refer to wet areas in the plot. They are often characterized by rushy patches or areas of dense branched mosses or sphagnum moss. Dry plots with no wet features will receive 0 here. Do also note that plots that have not received a score in A1 or A2 should receive a 0 here. As with the other scorecards, plots with wet features but without OSI or Ordnance Survey of Ireland mapped watercourses receive 5 marks, and those with these watercourses receive 15. B2 is the wetness as indicated by the cover of wetland indicators. Remember our positive indicators in A1 with an asterisk? Well, the total cover in this question includes those species, plus rushes and purple moorgrass. There's a choice of 5 cover categories. B3 is artificial drainage features within the plot. Drained grassland are frequent widespread free-flowing drains within the plot that affects more than 20% of the plot. Partly drained is where free-flowing drains affect less than 20% of the plot. Both of these categories, the drains are generally relatively recent and are fully functional. Past drainage is when the drains are present, but the flow is impeded, and they are usually fully vegetated or naturalized. And no drainage is where there are no artificial drainage features present. C1. What is the cover of encroaching immature scrub? And we ask that you identify the main species. This question generally refers to sites where there are signs of recently reduced grazing levels. Immature encroaching scrub refers to brambles, seedlings and trees of less than 1.5 meters in height. There are 4 categories of cover. C2. What is the cover of bracken? Here, we're referring to the cover of dense bracken. Dense bracken will tend to have little or no grasses or flowering plants underneath and will be dominated by bracken litter. There are 3 categories of bracken cover: high, which is greater than 50%, medium of 11 to 50%, and low is 0 to 10%. If the plot has greater than 50% cover, you might want to consider if it is dominating the plot. If so, you should use the scrub scorecard and award a total of 5 out of 10 for the plot. C3. What is the cover of rhododendron? We have 4 categories here. Severe, where there are dense clumps and many of the plants are flowering. Moderate, are not forming dense clumps, but the plants may be flowering. Slight, are generally small plants, and these are usually not flowering. And absent. C4. To what extent is the ground poached? There are 5 categories as per the scorecard. But note that the not poached category does allow for small patches around gateways or gaps between fields, but shouldn't exceed 1% of the entire plot. C5. Is there any evidence of any damaging activities to vegetation or soil? Remember, any issues not recorded elsewhere in the scorecard may be captured here. Then, the comments section is there to provide any management advice that you can suggest that may improve the plot score for the farmer.